Hi everyone. Hope you have done the homework which I have given last class, isn't it? Now the question was, draw the formation of ionic compound MgCl2. Hope everybody has done, but still I will give you the answer like it is Mg2 plus and Cl2, 4, 6, 7. Why? Because chlorine, the atomic number, the electronic configuration is 2, 8, 7. So 7, and from magnesium 2 electrons are coming. So you should write like this: Mg2 plus and Cl, 2 chlorine should come. So we will write like this: 1 chlorine, there is 1 minus charge. So for 2 chlorine you have to put like this. It's very important. Hope we have done it correctly. Okay, so first we have to see what is the formula for this, and according to the formula you have to draw the formation of that compound, isn't it? Okay, or you can check out for or do the homework for Na2O, or you can have calcium chloride. 3 homeworks, 1, 2 and 3 is calcium oxide. So practice these 3 ionic compounds, the formation of these 3 ionic compounds. Keep in mind, you have to know the formula, and from the formula you have to know how many atoms, how many atoms of sodium and how many atoms of oxygen. So how can they combine together? So you have to have that. Now for example, if the question is asked by giving not the formula but in a word like calcium oxide. So draw the formation of the ionic compound calcium oxide. They are not giving you the formula. They are giving only the word. So then what you will do? You have to convert it into the formula. There you have to apply the valency and you have to get the correct formula. If you are not getting the correct formula, then whole thing will go wrong. So that is why the importance of valency and then the chemical formulae, which we have studied the first class. So just go through it. If you have any doubt, just clarify with me. Okay. So just have these 3 in this your notebook. Then draw the formation of these 3 compounds. Okay. Now, so we were discussing about the ionic compound, right? Ionic compound or electrovalent compound. So how will you define an ionic compound? An ionic compound or an electrovalent compound can be defined as a compound formed by the transfer of electrons. The value point is transfer of electrons. Okay, so while writing the definition, you have to write the transfer, that is a compound formed by the transfer of electrons from a metal to a non-metal. Isn't it? See, that is electrovalent compound or ionic compound is formed by the transfer of electron or electrons. Okay, transfer of electrons from metal to a non-metal. You know, for example, of an ionic compound is sodium chloride, isn't it? Sodium is a metal, chlorine is a non-metal. Or potassium iodide. Potassium is a metal, iodine is a non-metal. Or you can say barium chloride. So many examples I can give. Barium is a metal, chlorine is a non-metal. Okay. Now again, one more question they can ask is, if you are given an ionic compound, then you have to say which is the cation formed and which is the anion formed. It's very simple, isn't it? So in the case of sodium chloride, which is the anion and cation formed? That is, sodium is Na plus and Cl minus. So plus means cation and minus is anion. So sodium cation and chloride anion is formed. Likewise in potassium iodide, potassium cation and iodide anion is formed. So these are the questions which can be come in the board exam from this topic. Okay. Now one more thing. Here you have draw the formation of ionic compound. Now if a question comes like, draw the electron dot structure of sodium metal or sodium element. How will you draw? You know, 9th standard we studied. draw, for example, sodium, how will you draw the electron dot structure? Electron dot structure. Are you remembering that? The Bohr's atom model, isn't it? So, there is a nucleus. You have to know the atomic number, isn't it? So, that is 11 protons. So, what is the electronic configuration? 281. So, first shell, that is a K shell, it is having 2 electrons. Then, coming to the L shell, having 8. 2, 4, 6, 8. And the last shell, which we call it as a valence shell, that is having a 1 electron. So, this is the electron dot structure of sodium element or chlorine element. You can draw like this. Okay, so don't get confused with the electron dot structure as well as the formation of an ionic compound. Okay, so this is about what? This is about the structure or the formation of ionic compounds. Okay, now today we will see some of the properties of ionic compounds. So today's topic is properties of ionic compound. Now what are the general physical properties of ionic compounds? Okay, so taking an example of ionic compounds, for example, the best example is NaCl, or if it is a potassium iodide, or you can say barium chloride. All these are the examples of what? Ionic compounds. Now coming to the properties of ionic compounds, the first property we discussed is the physical nature. So you will see the physical nature of the ionic compound. Physical nature means what? Physical nature means how it appears or how it looks like, isn't it? So normally these ionic compounds, you can say what is NaCl salt, table salt we call. This is also you can generally call it as salt, potassium iodide salt, barium chloride salt, calcium chloride salt. So these are salt which are seen in our lab. All these salts we have there in our lab. Okay. So the physical nature means how it looks like, whether it is a solid or a liquid or a gas. Okay. So that is the physical state of it. Okay. So normally or generally the ionic compounds are solid in nature. Okay. So we can say the ionic compounds are solid in nature. Okay. That is, for example, sodium chloride, you know, it's a white solid, isn't it? It has got a crystalline lattice or a crystalline solid, you say. Okay. Likewise, potassium chloride and barium chloride, etc. are solid in nature. Okay. Now, it is generally these ionic compounds are, one is solid, and second property is these are hard in nature. The ionic compounds are hard in nature. Why so? Why? Because you know how an ionic compound is formed. Ionic compound is formed by the transfer of electrons from a metal to a non-metal. Now, what type of bond is getting there? That bond is called as an ionic bond or an electrovalent bond. So, ions are getting bonded. That is, a positive ion is getting attracted to a negative ion, and thus a chemical bond is formed, or an attraction, a very strong attraction is there, and thereby that type of attraction is called as an ionic bond or a covalent bond. So the force of attraction between a positive ion and a negative ion is so strong. That is why, that is one of the reasons we say that the ionic compounds are hard in nature. Because there exists a strong force of attraction between these two ions, that is a cation as well as the anion. Correct? Okay. Now at the same time, if we say hard, at the same time the ionic compounds are brittle also. Now what do you mean by brittle? Brittle means on applying pressure or stress, it may break. That's the meaning of brittle. So I can write the ionic compounds, generally they are solid, they are hard as well as brittle in nature. Brittle means on applying stress or pressure or force, it can break. So that is the first property about the physical nature of the ionic compound. You got it? That is, generally they are solids, they are hard and brittle. Okay. Now coming to the second property of the ionic compound, that is solubility. Solubility means what? Some compounds are, we say some compounds are soluble in water, some compounds are insoluble in chloroform or benzene. isn't it? So what do you mean? What is the solubility of ionic compound? Now, ionic compounds are generally soluble in polar solvents. Polar solvents means like water. Polarity is there. Polarity means plus and minus charge will be there. That you will study in higher classes. So, you just study that the ionic compounds are soluble in water, or generally I can say polar solvents. Water is polar, H2O, H plus and OH minus, isn't it? So, ionic compounds are generally soluble in water, but they are insoluble in organic solvents. Organic solvents means what? Benzene or chloroform or carbon disulfide or kerosene, etc., petrol, etc. Okay, so that we can say ionic compounds are soluble in polar solvents. Okay, or instead of polar solvents you can write also water, no problem. Okay, but they are insoluble in organic solvents. Organic solvents, namely chloroform, CCl4, you will study in the 4th chapter, or benzene. Okay, carbon compounds or carbon chemistry, you will study there in detail. Okay, so generally the solubility is the ionic compounds are soluble in polar solvents like water and insoluble in organic solvents like benzene or chloroform or kerosene, etc. Okay, so this is the second property of ionic compound. First property was the physical nature, second is the solubility. Okay, now coming to the third property about the melting point and boiling point. Now what about the melting point and boiling point of a ionic compound? You know, when a compound melts, you give temperature, isn't it? The temperature is increased, then how melting takes place? If you want to melt a compound, what is the chemistry behind it? You have to break that bond, isn't it? Now, for example, say sodium and chlorine ions are attracted together and it is bonded by an electrostatic force of attraction. Now, if melting has to happen, what is there? The bond must break. And how that bond breaks? By giving energy, heat energy. Okay. Now, if the bond is so strong, we have to give more and more energy to break. So, you know, ionic compounds are what? Ionic compounds are very, very hard. That means there is a strong force of attraction between the molecules. And due to this force of attraction or strong force of attraction between the molecules, the ionic compounds generally having high MP and BP. MP means melting point and BP means boiling point. Okay, so the reason is also the same as where we said in hard. That means they are having high melting point and boiling point. Why? Because due to the high force of attraction. Okay, high force of attraction, due to the strong force of attraction between the compounds, the molecules, then they are having a high melting point as well as a boiling point. Clear? Okay. That is, first is the physical nature. It's a solid generally, hard and brittle. Brittle means if you apply a pressure or a stress, it will break. Then second is the solubility. Solubility, it is soluble in polar solvents like water and insoluble in organic solvents like benzene and chloroform. Now third is melting point and boiling point. What about melting and boiling point? Generally, ionic compounds are having high MP and BP or high melting point and boiling point. Why? Because of the strong force of attraction. In order to break the strong force of attraction, we need more energy. That is why they are having high melting point and boiling point. Is it clear? Okay. Now we will pass on to the fourth physical property or property of ionic compound. That is, it's very important. That is the conductivity. Conductivity of ionic compounds. Okay. Generally, ionic compounds are conductive in aqueous solutions. Okay. So, they are conductive in aqueous solution. Aqueous solutions means what? Aqueous solution means, say, if you have NaCl salt, you dissolve it in water, you will get, we will write it as NaCl aqua. That means, when NaCl is dissolved in water, you get a solution of NaCl. Now, in this solution of NaCl, you know what are there? They are Na positive ions and Cl minus ions, isn't it? And these ions are responsible for the conductivity. Okay, and you know in solutions ions are responsible for conduction, and in metallic conductor electrons are responsible for the conduction. You know that, we have studied earlier. Okay, so in the case of ionic compounds, the ionic compounds will conduct electricity in presence of water as well as two things. One in aqueous solution and second in molten state. Aqueous solution, you got it. How? You dissolve it in water, you will get the ions. And these ions are responsible for the conductivity. Okay. Now what about molten state? What do you mean by molten? Molten means just heating and forming into a semi-liquid state, isn't it? Molten means just a semi-liquid state. Just the solid is being converted into that liquid state. Okay. So there what happens in molten state, we are giving heat energy. Okay. When we heat that salt, the heat which we give is used for breaking that what? That electrostatic force of attraction. Okay, and that heat is needed to overcome, or the heat we gave is for what? Is for the breaking of that bond, and then what happens? The ions are formed there. Okay, so thereby in the molten state also ions will be formed. So you are giving the heat, and the heat is what? It is required to break this bond, this ionic bond. It will break this bond and it will form the ions, and thereby ions are there. And you know ions are what? Ions are responsible for the conduction of electricity, isn't it? So we can say what? Ionic compounds are conductive in aqueous solution as well as in molten state. They conduct electricity in aqueous solution or aqueous state as well as in molten state. Okay. But they are non-conductor, or they does not conduct electricity in solid state. Okay, that's a board exam question. Ionic compounds does not conduct electricity in solid state. Why? What will be the reason? There are no ions here, right? Why? Because in solid state, the ionic compounds, they have got a rigid structure. That means the atoms or the ions are not able to move. That is the reason. So in solid state, the ionic compounds does not conduct electricity. But in aqueous state as well as in the molten state, they conduct electricity. It's a board exam question. Why ionic compounds does not conduct electricity in solid state? What is the value point? Because it does not contain ions in solid state due to its rigid structure. See, the value point is a rigid structure. You have to write the value points, generally you will get the marks. And now what is this rigid structure? Because both the ions, the cations as well as the anions are in a rigid condition, which means the force of attraction is very, very high. You can't break like that. Okay, so that is rigid structure. So due to the rigid structure, ionic compounds in the solid state does not conduct electricity, whereas it conducts electricity in aqueous solution as well as in the molten state. Aqueous solution, you will get ions. Free ions are there in the aqueous solution, and in molten state, the heat which were given is what? Is used for the breaking up of this electrostatic bond or the ionic bond. Once the bond is broken, the ions are free. So, it will conduct electricity because ions are the carriers of electricity in solutions. So, is it clear? Okay. So, that is the fourth property of ionic compound. And the last property you have to study the ionic compound is the ionic compounds. Generally, almost all ionic compounds will show a color when it is shown in a flame. For example, if you take some potassium iodide, that's a salt, it's an ionic compound, right? Potassium iodide, or sodium iodide, or calcium chloride. All these are ionic compounds. When these, you take some salt in a spatula or in a glass rod and you show this salt directly into a flame, we can see that that flame is having some characteristic colors. They show some characteristic color. For example, for potassium iodide, it will show a lilac color. Lilac means what? It's a violet color. Okay. Then for sodium, it will show an yellowish color. Okay. It will show an yellowish color or a yellow color. Now for calcium chloride salt, it will show a brick red color. You know brick, right? That red color of that brick red color. Or if you have a barium chloride, have a salt, it will show a green color. Which means that each salt or each ionic compound has got a characteristic color. Actually, the color comes from this metal. In particular, it is a characteristics of metals, but we will say ionic compounds will show a characteristic color for that flame when it is shown to a flame. Okay. So this actually the chemistry behind this you will study in higher classes. That is, in this metal there is electrons, free electrons are there, and the excitation of electrons will cause the metal to get the flame. So that you can have in the higher classes. So just study that. They will show a characteristic color when it is kept in a flame. Okay, when it is shown directly into a flame. Okay, that's all. So these are the 5 properties of an ionic compound. So what are the 5 properties? First is the appearance or the physical nature. What was the physical nature? Generally they are solids. Then they are hard and brittle. What was the second one? The solubility. What was the solubility? Generally ionic compounds are soluble in polar solvents like water and insoluble in organic solvents like benzene or chloroform or carbon disulfide, etc. Now third property is they are having high melting point and boiling point. Why? What is the reason behind that? That is due to the strong force of attraction between the ionic compound, that is a cation as well as the anion, isn't it? And now the fourth point is it is having a high MP and BP. That's I have told you, right? MP and BP means what? They have strong force of attraction. The fourth point is about the conductivity of electricity. They are good conductors of electricity in aqueous solution or in molten state because ions are there for carrying the current. But in solid state, they does not conduct electricity. It's very important. Why? Because of its rigid structure. That's a value point. Now, why this rigid structure is not capable of having ions? Because of the strong force of attraction, it is not capable of movement. That is why. Okay. And the last point is they will show a characteristic color to the flame. When it is shown to a Bunsen burner or a flame, it has a characteristic color. For example, potassium, it is having a lilac. Calcium, it is having a brick red. Then barium, it is green. Sodium, it is yellow. Then manganese, it is pink. So many. Okay. So that is the property related to the metals actually. Okay. Due to the excitation of electrons. So these are the properties of ionic compounds. Okay. So it is clear. Okay. So I think there are 3 or 4 questions in your in-text. So you have to write that question with answers in your science notebook. Okay. So that's all about the ionic compounds. Now we will have another topic in this chapter which is called as occurrence of elements, or simply I can write a title called as metallurgy. It is called as metallurgy. Metallurgy means, or in your textbook, it is called as occurrence of elements. Okay. Occurrence of elements means it comes under a branch of chemistry called as the inorganic chemistry. You know, there are so many branches of chemistries like inorganic chemistry which deals with metals. The extraction, the purification, how a metal is extracted from an ore or like that, how it is purified, how it is refined, how you get a 99.9% of a metal. All that comes under the metallurgy. in the inorganic chemistry. Physical chemistry means what? It deals with some solutions, the properties of solutions, the vapor pressure, etc., etc. And what is organic chemistry? That deals with only about the carbon, that you will study in the 4th chapter. Okay, so many analytical chemistry are there, so many branches of chemistry. So metallurgy comes under what? The inorganic chemistry. Okay, now we will see about metallurgy or occurrence of elements. Okay. Now just today we will have an introduction of what this metallurgy is, or how do we extract this metal from an ore, or all that process. You can just have an introduction today. Okay. Now as I have already told you, metallurgy means the study of extraction of metals. Okay. Extraction of metals normally from minerals. And you know, minerals you can see from the, or you can have the minerals from the earth's crust. Okay, minerals are seen from the earth's crust. Okay, now how you extract this metal, and or what is this mineral? Minerals are nothing but compounds. Okay, compounds means, for example, iron. If you take iron, or if I want to extract iron, we can have so many types of compounds in iron, like iron oxide, iron sulfide, then iron sulfate, etc. These are all compounds of iron. But in all these compounds, we cannot extract iron easily. Okay, so we want to extract a metal, a particular metal, whichever metal is there. You want to extract a particular metal more profitably. What I mean more profitably? That means if I take a metal, or if I take an element, I mean a mineral, and that mineral or that compound does not contain so much of that particular metal or iron, for example iron, and if I cannot extract profitably means cheaply or easily, cheaply and easily, there is no point in that, right? Okay, so I have to extract that metal profitably. Okay. Now as I said, minerals are compounds having that metal, or compounds of that metal having some impurities, like what? Like clay or sand or rock, etc. So minerals are nothing but compounds which contains metal, and along with the metal it contains some impurities, like what? Impurities like sand or clay or rock, etc. Okay, and as already mentioned, you can't extract minerals from all its compounds. Okay, so certain minerals have a higher percentage of metal in that. You got it? Certain minerals or compounds contains more percentage of metals in that, and that minerals you call it as ore. What is it? Ore. You call a new term in metallurgy, that is ore. Now what is an ore? Ore is nothing but a mineral. Okay, mineral means what? Minerals are compounds. Okay, so minerals in which there is a high percentage of what? A high percentage of metal is there in the mineral. Okay, so the first point is there must be a high percentage of the metal. Or if I want and extract iron, okay, if I want to extract an iron, I should have a mineral which is having a more percentage of iron in it, isn't it? Then only I will call that to be an ore. Correct? Okay. So high percentage of metal, and the second value point is it must be profitably extracted. Profitably extracted. So these are the two value points in the definition of an ore. Now what is an ore? Ore is a mineral which is having a high percentage of metal which can be profitably extracted. Profitably means what? Easily and cheaply. Easily and cheaply. I can write. That is profitably. So that is called as an ore. Now you understood what is an ore. Ore is a mineral. What is a mineral? It is a compound. Okay. So ore is a mineral which has got a greater percentage of that metal which can be profitably extracted. So that is called as an ore. You got it? For example, the ore of iron there are two ores of iron, that is one is Fe2O3 and Fe3O4. This is hematite and this is magnetite. There are two ores in iron. So from these ores you can extract iron easily because these oxides of iron contains more iron. Correct. Likewise, for example, in the case of copper. Copper, one of the ore of copper is copper carbonate, copper hydroxide. This mixture, which is called as malachite. So many ores are there. One such example of an ore is malachite. So this is an ore of copper. Or if you want a ore of zinc, I can say zinc oxide. Or zinc carbonate, calamine. Or zinc blend, ZNS, zinc sulfide. Okay. Copper again, I can say copper pyrites, that is CuFeS2. So these are called as ore. So how will you define an ore? Ore is a mineral which contain a higher percentage of metal which can be profitably extracted. So that is the definition of an ore. So now you got an idea of what an ore is, isn't it? So ore contains that mineral which we want to extract, or metal. In fact, metal. Mineral means what? Compounds having that metal, isn't it? So metals can be extracted from ore. Okay. Now ore contains what? As I told you, these minerals or the metals are associated with some type of impurities like sand or clay or rocks, etc. And that impurities which are associated with this ore is called as gangue. What is it? Gangue. That is a second term in the metallurgy. G-A-U-N-G-E. Gangue. Okay. So what is ore? Ore is a mineral which has got a high percentage of metal which can be profitably extracted. And what is gangue? Gangue is the impurity present in the metal, or ore is called as the gangue. Okay. So this is about the introduction of this metallurgy. Now we got it, how you can extract a metal from an ore. Okay. Now, so these are the examples of ore. Iron ore, that is iron oxide, two types of oxide. Zinc, there are oxides. Then copper, there are copper carbonates, etc. Okay. So this is about the introduction of the occurrence of metal, that is ore and gangue. Okay. Now we want to know how you will extract a metal. You have ore in your hand. Ore means the metal or along with the impurity. Now how we will extract this metal from that ore? For that, we have studied in the last class or last chapter. No, this chapter only. The activities series, that is, you have Posakama, that is, so potassium, sodium, calcium, magnesium, aluminium, zinc, Al-Zil, that is iron, then lead, then copper, then hydrogen, then copper, then MsG, that is mercury, silver, gold. So this is the activity series or reactivity series. Now, from seeing this reactivity series, you can have an idea that which metal is more reactive and which metal is less reactive. You know, at the top of the series, these metals are highly reactive. Okay. Now, these are the moderately reactive metals, still copper. And the last silver, mercury, gold, platinum, etc. are non-reactive. Okay. That metals we can have in a noble state. They occur free in nature. Why? Because they don't react with any other, because they are stable. They are least reactive. So, we don't have to bother about that metals. We have to bother about what? The most reactive metals, the moderately reactive metals, and the least reactive metals in which we can extract the metal. Okay. So, from this reactivity series, you can say these are the highly reactive metals. Okay. Highly reactive metals. These are the moderately reactive metals. moderately reactive metals, and last is the least reactive metals. So this is about the introduction for the metallurgy. So in the next class we will see what are the steps involved in this extraction of metals. So till then read the textbook thoroughly and make notes of yourself. I will give the notes in the last. Okay. So till then keep studying. Thank you.